Drop a like and do share. Leave your comments and do not forget to subscribe for more videos.
Hello students, welcome to atptable.com, your online gateway to the world of invaluable knowledge. So now, let's try to understand the application of the concept of present value in the case of the growing annuities. So what exactly growing annuities are? If you may recall, we already discussed at the time of calculating the future value of the growing annuities. This time we shall be trying to understand the application of discounting in the case of the growing annuities so that we can calculate the present value of the growing annuities. Now students, if you may remember that at the time of discussing the future value of growing annuities, we stopped at the derivation of the formula part. We just discussed the actual formula, we saw the application, but we didn't discuss the derivation, which I told you that I shall be discussing it, I shall be taking it up when we shall be dealing with the concept of calculation of present value of the growing annuities. So now the time has come, but before we reach to that particular point, there are some more pertinent points which we need to understand for a better understanding of the present value concept of the growing annuities. So students, so far the term growing annuities are concerned, I'm sure by now we all are well acquainted rather with the term of growing annuities. Just for a quick recap, growing annuities refer to those annuities which are growing every year for n number of years with a stipulated fixed growth rate. The annuities are growing by a fixed growth rate for n number of years in the future. So although the amount of the final annuity at the end of every year is changing, but still they are known as annuities due to two reasons. Number one, the amount of annuity is the same, and number two, the growth rate by which the annuity is actually growing, that annuity or that growth rate of the annuity is constant across all the annuity payments till the nth year. So it means that the growth rate is not fluctuating, it is static across n number of years in the future. So we need to calculate the present value of such annuities which are growing for n number of years against a fixed growth rate. Now let's look at the final formula before discussing the derivation part. The final formula looks at as PVGA is equal to A upon I minus G within curly brackets 1 minus within small bracket 1 plus G upon 1 plus I raised to the power n curly brackets closed. Once again student, PVGA, that is the present value of growing annuity, is equal to A upon I minus G within curly brackets 1 minus within small bracket 1 plus G upon 1 plus I whole raised to the power n. So in this particular formula, this formula might look quite similar to you. I mean, it is quite familiar. I mean, you all guys are familiar with this formula with a small variation. There is a small variation in this particular formula, but somewhere or the other you might be recollecting that this formula looks identical to the formula which we use to calculate the present value of an annuity. So over here you are already acquainted with the term A, that is the first term, or in this case the annuity. I is a discounting rate, N is a number of years, but the new term which is being introduced in this particular concept is the G, or the growth rate, because we know that growth rate comes into the picture only when the annuities are growing. In the case the annuities are not growing, there is no question of the involvement of G. So now let's talk about the derivation of the formula part. Now students, you may recollect that at the very beginning when we were talking about calculating the present value of the present value of annuities or future value of annuities, we tried to understand the concept of geometric progression to start off with. And in the case of geometric progression, we came across two conditions wherein we were required to calculate the Sn, or the sum total of n terms which were growing with the geometric progression, with the first term being A and R being the common factor raised to the power n minus 1. So for the entire sequence which was following a geometric progression pattern, we calculated the term Sn, or the sum total of the n number of terms. But those calculations were subjected to two broad conditions. First one was where R was equal to 1. R, you may all recollect that R stood for the common ratio, wherein R was equal to 1, and the second condition where R was not equal to 1. And the condition where R was not equal to 1, it was further subdivided under two conditions where R was more than 1 and R was less than 1. So I won't get into the derivation part all over again because we have already discussed it. Now it will be a wastage of time. So let's come to the point directly, that in case of calculation of the present value of growing annuities, we are more concerned with the condition wherein your R is less than 1 or the common factor is less than 1. Now students, you may recollect that when R is less than 1, we follow this formula for calculating the sum total of the series for n number of years which is growing in a geometric progression. Once again students, in the case of R is equal to less than 1, where R is less than 1, we follow this formula in order to calculate the sum total of the n series which is growing with a geometric progression. So the formula, once again students, I'm sure you all are now well acquainted with this particular formula, so it won't pose any challenges to you. So just a quick recap, that Sn is equal to A within small bracket 1 minus R raised to the power n, small bracket close, upon within bracket 1 minus R. Once again student, Sn is equal to A into within small brackets 1 minus Rn upon 1 minus R, where A is the first term, R is a common factor, n is the number of years. We have already discussed at length that how exactly this particular formula has been finally derived. So without repeating it, let's get down to the sequence of the present value of the growing annuities, and let's try to understand that how exactly the sequence of present value of growing annuities is following a geometric pattern, a geometric sequence. So P is equal to, that is the present value, is equal to A into 1 plus G raised to the power 1 minus 1 whole upon 1 plus I to the power 1 plus A into 1 plus G raised to the power 2 minus 1 whole upon 1 plus I square plus A into 1 plus G raised to the power 3 minus 1 whole upon 1 plus I cube, till the point we reach A into 1 plus G n minus 1 whole upon 1 plus I raised to the power n. Now students, over here I'm sure we all are understanding clearly that what role 1 plus I to the power of 1, 1 plus I to the power of 2, 1 plus I to the power of 3 and 1 plus I to the power of n is playing in the entire formula. It goes without saying that the moment we are dividing A by 1 plus I, it means that we are trying to convert the future value of A at its respective present value. We know that over here, we have already discussed this point also earlier, that when 1 plus I is being used as a reciprocation, or it is being used as a denominator against A, it simply means that it is actually A multiplied by 1 upon 1 plus I, or A multiplied by 1 plus I raised to the power negative 1. But since we don't show it like this way, in a simple manner, the point which I am trying to drive home is that we are trying to calculate the present value of A the moment we are dividing A by 1 plus I to the power 1. So over here we all know that 1 stands as the required rate of return, or the hurdle rate, or the discounting rate. But over here the new entrant, as I've already mentioned, that a new entrant or new variable is a G, or the growth rate. We are finding that every year the annuity amount is growing consistently by 1 plus G. Every year the amount of annuity is growing by G percentage. So it is A into 1 plus G, A into 1 plus G, A into 1 plus G, A into 1 plus G. The only thing which is differing is the length of the years, because since we know that it is following a geometric sequence, and for the geometric sequence the first term is always AR to the power raised to the power 1 minus 1, AR raised to the power 2 minus 1, AR raised to the power 3 minus 1, till we reach a point where it is actually AR raised to the power n minus 1. So over here also the things remains the same. A into 1 plus G raised to the power 1 minus 1, A into 1 plus G raised to the power 2 minus 1, A into 1 plus G raised to the power 3 minus 1, A into 1 plus G raised to the power n minus 1. So this establishes the fact that looking at the entire formula, we can easily figure out that annuities amounting $A are growing by G percentage every year till the nth year, and the same annuities for each year is being converted to their respective present value by using 1 plus I as a discounting rate. So once again, student, the formula looks like P is equal to A into 1 plus G raised to the power 1 minus 1 upon 1 plus I raised to the power 1 till the point we reach at A into 1 plus G to the power n minus 1 upon 1 plus I to the power n. All these variables you all are already acquainted with. A is the annuity amount, G is the growth rate in annuities, I is the required rate of return or the discounting rate or the hurdle rate, and N stands for the number of years. Now upon solving, it is a simple solution that P is equal to A into 1 plus G raised to the power 0 upon 1 plus I to the power 1 plus A into 1 plus G to the power 1 upon 1 plus I to the power 2 plus A into 1 plus G to the power 2 upon 1 plus I to the power 3 plus A into 1 plus G to the power n minus 1 upon 1 plus I to the power n. So 0, needless to say, any base raised to the power 0 is actually 1. So therefore 1 multiplied by A is A upon 1 plus I, and when it is 1 plus G is raised to the power 1, it means it is just A into 1 plus G upon 1 plus I to the power 2 plus A into 1 plus G power 2 upon 1 plus I to the power 3, and so on and so forth till we reach a point where it is A into 1 plus G raised to the power n minus 1 upon 1 plus I to the power n. Now one thing over here, we can clearly see that A upon 1 plus I can easily be taken as a common factor. This is one variable which is common to each and every term. So A upon 1 plus I can easily be taken as a common factor. So if we take A upon 1 plus I as a common factor, then the value of P will be P is equal to A upon 1 plus I plus A upon 1 plus I into 1 plus G upon 1 plus I plus A upon 1 plus I into 1 plus G upon 1 plus I whole square plus A upon 1 plus I multiplied by 1 plus G upon 1 plus I raised to the power n minus 1. Again, a closer look shall reveal that A upon 1 plus I is being used as the first term, while 1 plus G upon 1 plus I acts as the common factor or R. Once again, students, since A upon 1 plus I is the first term, common term as well as the first term, I mean common term because we are using A upon 1 plus I as a factor, as common factor it is taken, therefore A upon 1 plus I taken now, the rest we are remained with 1 plus G upon 1 plus I, 1 plus G upon 1 plus I to the power 2 and 1 plus G upon 1 plus I raised to the power n minus 1. So A upon 1 plus I is the first term, while the common term is 1 plus G upon 1 plus I. Common term is 1 plus G upon 1 plus I. So first term small a is A upon 1 plus I, and the common term R is equal to 1 plus G upon 1 plus I. So far the discussion was quite simple, the discussion was quite relatable. You already knew that we are familiar with all these terms, you already seen them in the past, but from now on the discussion becomes a bit tricky. It is not actually tricky. The thing is that from now forth the actual derivation of the mother formula which we saw, I mean this particular formula, that is A upon 1 minus G within curly brackets 1 minus 1 plus G upon 1 plus I whole raised to the power n curly brackets close. This formula rests heavily on the interaction of these two variables. Now let me make myself clear once again. The derivation of the mother formula which we just saw, it rests heavily or it depends heavily upon the interaction of these two important variables, that is the G and the I. So the successive discussion shall focus on understanding how exactly these two variables, that is a G which is standing for the growth rate and I which stands for the discounting rate or the required rate of return, how exactly these two variables are matching up against each other, how they are being compared against each other, how exactly they are interacting between themselves, so that the actual understanding or actual understanding of the derivation of the main formula becomes very clear. I hope this brief discussion is clear to you, students. That's it for now, students. Thank you, students. Happy learning.